art lovers to the second day of the 4-day International Art Conclave. This evening we have Peter Fink from the UK, we have Najjar from Sweden, and we have Ger Alois-Zwing from Germany. Imagine collecting 165,000 truckloads of rubble from development sites across London district. Imagine constructing a new monumental undulating landform with all that deposition. And then witness on any given day countless people, seniors, mothers, young couples, joggers, school children, fathers and sons charging excitedly up the mounds, christened Northanger Fields. What many residents of that area did not realize was that not only did they now have a new park in their community, they also had a piece of land art, created and developed at no cost to the taxpayer by none other than Peter Fink. Peter Fink is best known for Art to Architecture, which he co-founded in 1996 with the architect Igor Marko to focus on collaborative projects between artists and architects. Northanger Fields is just one example. Over the past 25 years, Peter Fink has produced many trailblazing projects. Noteworthy among them is a steel wave sculpture and promenade project, then the Three Rivers Park in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, and also the car-free London project that transformed London's pedestrian and cycling environment. London-born Fink spent his early years in Czechoslovakia. Initial study in engineering and then a shift to studying sculpture at St. Martin's and further philosophy, combined with a long-standing interest in architecture, have given his artistic practice a unique slant. His experimental approach is informed by the conviction that artists need to engage independently and directly with the world, beyond the confines of art galleries and museums. The emphasis that he gives to discursive and interactive relationships with diverse communities has occasioned an interdisciplinary and collaborative way of working with other professionals. He founded MAP Productions, of which the artist Anne Bean, whose presentation we saw yesterday, was also a member. In 2006, Fink became a founding partner of Form Associates, landscape and urban design practice focusing on placemaking. 2 years ago, he founded Studio Fink to focus on social sustainability. With over 25 prestigious awards to his credit, Fink's keen interest in architecture has also extended into teaching at the Architectural Association and at the Bartlett School of Architecture in London, as well as into co-writing several seminal books on public art. His work has been widely published in Europe, North America, and Asia. He regularly gives presentations at conferences, as well as leads planning for workshops with communities in different European and North American cities. We are fortunate to have you in our midst today, sir. Thank you.
Always, when one comes to events like this, I always think what is really the meaning of them. And over years, I came to the conclusion that the meaning really is the opportunity to stop thinking about one's own work and have an opportunity to hear what other people are doing, and also somehow involve oneself in discussions that one would like to have with people and can't because one is not in the same place at the same time. What I would like to do in this talk is just to touch on some of the ingredients that one needs to bring together when one is involved with big projects or small projects which involve real people, money, and all kinds of political and other practicalities. The first project I want to show as an introduction is a project which I realized with Anne Bean at the time when our son was born in 1990, when also Canary Wharf in London was born. It was the first high-rise building in London, creating a great deal of unease about its height. As we saw it growing in our backyard, Anna and me had the idea what would happen if we did something with that building in light. I lifted the phone with no connection to Canary Wharf developers. And within 6 months, we negotiated the opportunity of doing this large light project. And it also involved very complex negotiations with the Civil Aviation Authority, the security services, the intelligence services, Ministry of Defense, and so on, about lighting this building in a way that was seen by planes leaving Paris. Within 10 minutes they saw it, because the beams of light were 6 kilometers long, the lasers were seen over 40 kilometers, and we animated the building with light. It started on New Year, the building counted down, and it was this marvelous opportunity to see the countdown, and you had the whole of London coming together from East London to almost Hammersmith, and millions of people were shouting down the seconds, and the voices were carrying over London, and the police said that they never had such a happy, calm New Year in London, and it produced worldwide publicity, and it was amazing. And we realized this project from start to nothing in 6 months, at a moment of technology when there was no Wi-Fi, so it was all done by analog with 10 kilometers of cabling through the building and so on. And it was one of the first big projects I did, and I understood that the world outside the art gallery system is infinitely bigger than the art gallery, and I started finding this a fascinating proposition and something which I still do. The next project I want to focus is North Halla Field, that was touched on a few minutes ago. This was a project that started with the London Borough of Ealing realizing that they got a vast bit of ground next to a big motorway that's suffering a lot of antisocial uses, and they had no money to do anything with it, so they thought, let's appoint artists, and they might find a way of mitigating some of these problems. I put together a very high-powered professional team with a very ambitious idea of transforming the whole thing into a park. And I started a community consultation with local people which lasted for 2 years, which was about exploring what the park should look like and how it could be funded. After 2 years, we came up to a concept of a park where I said that if we collect all the clean construction spoil in London, from the demolition of Wembley Stadium, Terminal 5 and White City, we could generate a very substantive amount. I projected £6.5 million, and that it would pay for the park. No one believed it, but nevertheless the council thought they would try it. And over 6 years of building, we started building it, and the finished park is actually very close to what I proposed at the beginning. And also the economic model worked absolutely perfectly, because it produced all the money I projected plus £200,000 to spare. What happened also in the middle is that there was a change of government from one political party to the other political party, and the political party in power saw all this money sitting in the bank, and they decided they could take all the money, finish the park very shoddily, and spend the money on the district where their voters were, perhaps a problem that in India people know very well, even though Modi said he would sort it out. And what happened is that I leaked it to the papers, and there were over 600 people and children demonstrating in front of Ealing Town Hall to save the park. The politicians got such a fright that within 24 hours the money was back in the bank, and they said they are the biggest promoters and supporters of the project, and the project got finished exactly as intended. So you see the scale of it, and it really is, and when I spoke about it, I said that I want to design a landscape which would propel people into movement. No one understood that, but now everyone understands it, because you genuinely see hundreds or thousands of people moving every day up and down the mountains. The whole thing also had a very strong ecology concept. It had a very clear articulation of how you treat water. It's the first park in London that has got an urban fishery. And also the soil on the site was tested, and alkaline and acid and neutral soil were kept separately, and all the planting on the mounds and everywhere else responds to the type of soil that was used. I'm interested very much about environmental sustainability, but I'm also equally interested in social sustainability, which I think is as important, because unless people as citizens adopt environmental sustainability, it will never happen. People happily fish there, and the park is absolutely full of people when the sun comes out or the snow comes, and I think it's quite successful. The second project, in my practice, I haven't got any particular iconography as an artist. Some artists develop the iconography over lifetime. I do very different things in all kinds of different directions, because that's how my mind and creativity works. This is a project which comes from more of an engineering point. It's a gateway into Liverpool. It's 36 meters high, 150 meters long, and the fins form a gateway that marks the geographic boundary of the city, and it creates also a dynamic gateway when you leave and enter the city itself, and it's also dramatically lit by night, and a lot of people film it on their video cameras as they're approaching the city. I also work on large scale in public realm. This is a project which is next to the Libeskind Imperial War Museum in Manchester. Not only did I helped to produce a big master plan for a park which would integrate the river into the city, which is now being realized, and I committed 3 local authorities to its implementation, and it will be implemented over the next decade. But I also designed this big promenade which links into a new bridge. And the interesting thing is that I also convinced the museum to open a new entrance, and now 75% of the visitors into the museum use this entrance, and that shows very graphically how many architects don't do entrances into buildings. I was also interested how the whole thing could work as a public realm space, and I designed a sculpted seating out of different colors of granite on many levels, also in anticipation of water taxis, and it now works as a very vibrant social space. And I also designed the lighting, so it is a space which is as vibrant often in daytime and nighttime, something that I'm particularly interested in. This is again from a totally different angle. That's a series of 3 sculptures, white ones, in Birmingham, and it uses the most advanced carbon fiber technology from the aeronautical industry. And what happens is that the wands sway very gently, almost mimicking the movement of trees and plants. And how it's done is that these polished leaves, which are mirror polished, reflecting the ground, in still conditions where there's no wind, form a perfect helical pattern like a DNA. And if the wind starts blowing, they fall into the back of the carbon fiber mast, and they act as an aerodynamic brake on the movement of the masts, and that produces this very harmonic, very pleasurable visually swaying. Therefore the plaza is very gently animated at most time of the day, and the light tips also sway very carefully, and it got quite a good response from people, precisely because it's a very unaggressive way of animating a bit of commercial public space. This is again something totally different. I was interested with the challenge how you could animate a dead, forgotten space. In London Docklands, which was a bustling dock with a lot of ships from all over the world, when it got regenerated, enormous amount of residential property and office property was built, leaving very little space around them, but yet there were these massive big empty water basins of clear water. And I came up with the idea that it could be very interesting to form these floating islands which could support all kinds of functions, from swimming to also market gardens for residents, playgrounds, because I'm very interested in how you could start growing food in our modern cities. And also I'm interested in how you could animate forgotten spaces. And one of the forgotten spaces you have is very much here. This big plaza in front of the museum is a forgotten space, which I think could do with some imaginative rethinking. Next. So this is another slide of the same concept. Other project, totally different, just to illustrate the width of what I'm doing, was realized in Swansea in Wales. And I'm very much interested in how people interact with the environment. And I produced these light rooms. And the light rooms are defined in the ground. I also designed the grid of the trees and the paving and everything else. And the light rooms are formed by flowing light. And as people walk, there are sensors there which predict their movement. So the lights start changing colors in the direction of their predicted movement. And when they stop, this is a flowing colors which is in still state. And as you walk in, you will see suddenly the light will start forming these rooms, either as a response to where you stand or where the sensors think you will be standing. I'm also very interested in things which are temporary. And it's a project I realized last year. And strangely enough, has got a very interesting connection to Chandigarh. Very oblique, of course. When Corbusier saw it, this is a square in Bergamo, in the old city, which is a walled city in Italy, one of the main cities of the Venetian Republic. And when Corbusier saw this square, and unfortunately I haven't got the photographs of the other side of the square, which is formed by a cathedral and other very important buildings, he burst into tears and said that it is the most beautiful square he saw. What I was interested in is how you could transform this square without destroying the square or in any way affecting it physically, and yet making it totally different. So for a period of 16 days, I transformed it with color and planting and trees and all kinds of things. And the planting was focused on healing plants and culinary plants and plants which have got aromatic properties and so on. And we created an environment where people visited the square in their thousands and spent virtually any time of day or night. It was full of people. And what was very interesting about it is how people reacted to the color. Originally, people were extremely nice. This is a slightly bleached photograph because of the sunshine, but it was very strong pink. And people were extremely nervous about it, but when it happened, it was exactly what worked, because people were energized and relaxed and opened up socially to interact with each other, even with strangers, precisely because of the strong impact of the color. And there was this thing where there was a woman who was due to get married, and she was very upset about the square because she said it would spoil her wedding photograph and everything else. So all the journalists, the square opened on Friday, and on Sunday she got married, and they were all there getting ready to get the terrible story. And she walks out of the cathedral, and overnight, because she liked the square so much, she dyed her white dress pink. And that was greatly satisfying, because I think art normally doesn't do that. What was also very interesting about it was that the square was visited in 16 days by 250,000 people. And because I believe in what I call evidence-based design, I was very pleased to have been informed that the economic activity in the old city has risen during those 16 days by 400%. Wow. This is a taste of a project that I will be working on in the next 10 years. You see a small town, and on the left you see a massive big quarry, which from the top face to the bottom face is about 200 meters. And I will be overseeing the re-landscaping of this quarry into what we hope will be the most ambitious bit of land and social art, using 2 million lorry loads of inert ash, based on the, and I think I can say that with some confidence, the most ambitious attempt at recycling anywhere in the world, where the target is to recycle 80% of all the material, waste materials that a million people, big province produces, return 80% of that into productive cycle for recycling as glass and metals and everything else. It will also be recycling IT equipment and not sending it to China or Africa. It will also be recycling food to produce compost. And what can be recycled, which is about 15%, will be burned into what will be the most advanced incinerator, a plasma incinerator to produce energy. And the rest will be this inert low calorific ash. And I will be working with engineers to develop a way of landforming it, and also ways of unlocking different functions on it, from gardening, leisure, culture, and so on, and do it like a big, very visible bit of land art. And so this is the sort of type of things that I will be involved in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Peter. Wonderful work that you shared with us, and I'm sure that you have much more in your stable somewhere, which you are keeping for the next lecture. 5 minutes question, please. Yeah. Come, Peter.
Sir, in your lecture you mentioned a point when you said one of your projects has a great level of relevance to Chandigarh. So
yes, I meant the link of the Corbusier exclaiming what a fantastic square it is. And I thought the qualities which reduce Corbusier to tears perhaps got a bit lost in the master plan of Chandigarh that got built. And I know that Chandigarh is now looking at its new master plan for 2030. And I think the relevance is that I think re-energizing the public realm spaces in Chandigarh more in line with Indian culture, which is about more readable, habitable public realm spaces which have got shade, which have got definition, which allow for a multiplicity of uses from semi-commercial to artistic, so on. I think this is what needs to come into the master plan now. And I also think it's a big opportunity for all you young people, because this is a time when you should have your needs met. And it should be met as a generation of new entrepreneurs and new creators and new people with imagination. You can be respectful of your elders, but you need to really start saying what you want. And you got this marvelous big canvas in front of your academy, in front of your museum. For God's sake, start doing something with it and stop just drawing on pieces of paper. Come up with ideas what you can do with it and use it. No one will stop you. Everyone will support you. But no one will stop you. No one will support you unless you start doing it. Doing nice drawings with pencil is
question,
great,
please.
but that won't change that sea of desert of concrete there. So that's my challenge to you.
How can such a huge project be a secret? I really wonder. And from the Google eye, how can you've shown the picture to us?
I'm particularly interested in the fact you're recycling waste materials. Can you say a bit more about that? Because I'm sure there'll be a demand for that all over the world.
Yeah, that's right. I think what's happening now is that there's an unholy collusion of global capitalism with local capitalism, and up till now, it didn't pay to really do recycling properly, because we fill all these huge landfill sites with toxic waste, which is producing a phenomenal amount of methane gas. They are very difficult to keep, but the companies that are running these sites are making a lot of money by depositing anything that comes into the site. And equally, a lot of dirty recycling is happening in places like China and Africa, where mainly IT technology is being recycled in a very dangerous way, where gold and precious metals are being extracted in terrible conditions. And no one really did it because, as I said, unless people as citizens demand environmental sustainability, the politicians won't deliver it. Because the citizens must cooperate in it, because this recycling of the million people conurbation will demand daily collection of separated streams of materials. So people will have to cooperate. And the reason why I say it's not public yet, because exactly all of that is now being discussed, how they approach it in terms of consultation and people's involvement and everything else and so on. And also how to create the assurances to people that the thing is environmentally safe, there won't be an effect on water table, etc., etc., etc. And I think what I find interesting about this whole thing is that not only I was invited as the only artist in the world to participate in because of my experience and engineering background, but also at the enormous aspiration of the whole project, because it is really a 21st century project. And in terms of sustainability, I'm working on another project in Italy, which will be a 21st century botanical garden. And that will be a project which will try to tell how we got into the mess with the food we are in. It will concentrate on showing how we took plants and through breeding of the plants and everything else, how we ended up in industrial agriculture, and how now we can change the industrial agriculture while we still taking the challenge of feeding everyone, but how we can change it into a different agriculture based on different plant stocks and different types of growing food and everything else. And it's a story which I think will be a fascinating story to tell, and the first 100 meters of the botanical garden is being planted just now.
I was quite intrigued by the scale of your projects. They are enormous, they are huge, they actually change the landscape. So how do you generate money for that? You also mentioned that you make money out of recycling. So I was just interested in the economy part of it. I mean,
I think money is never the problem. Mm-hmm. Because I think money is just money.
Yeah.
So I think the ideas are the problem, and also is enrolling other people in supporting the idea. And I think artists need to handle money not as things to buy big cars and have amazing lives. They need to just use it as a material, because money is just a means of doing things. And if you understand how, for example, if you look at the rock garden, it's actually terribly interesting. Because when I came to Chandigarh for the first time, it was 35 years ago, the rock garden was phase 1.0 or something. It was small. It just was happening. And somehow that created small momentum. I created its own money, and it's now a tourist thing, and it's a part of the identity of Chandigarh and everything else and so on. And the money somehow was never mentioned, because the guy started with getting bags of cement, and after bags of cement changing money, and after it became a labor creation scheme, and it started employing people, and now it brings money for tourism. And so the money sort of grows with ideas. And if you start thinking with money first, you will never do anything.